You ever heard of Gary, Indiana? Most people drive past it on Interstate 80 and never look twice. Abandoned steel mills, empty houses, streets where the streetlights don't work anymore. It's one of those places America forgot about. A city that died slowly while everyone watched. But here's what they don't tell you about Gary. Beneath one of those abandoned industrial complexes, buried under 50 feet of concrete and rust, there's a prison that doesn't officially exist. That's where I worked. My name is Chris, and I was a guard at Blackstone Maximum Security Facility. The first time I saw the place, I almost turned around and left. It was in the dead industrial zone, surrounded by chain-link fences with razor wire. The building looked like every other abandoned factory in the area, complete with broken windows and graffiti. But that was the point. Camouflage. Nobody looks twice at another dead building in Gary, Indiana. The real facility was underground. Way underground. And what they kept down there wasn't human. Not entirely. The day I started, Warden Williams called me into his office. It wasn't in the abandoned building. It was in the actual facility, 3 levels below ground. His office had no windows, just concrete walls and fluorescent lights that hummed constantly. Williams was in his 50s, built like a drill sergeant, with a posture that screamed military background. On his desk, next to standard personnel files, sat a folder with a black border. No label, no markings, just black. "Chris, welcome," he said, though his voice didn't carry much warmth. 6 years in corrections, clean record, spotless background check. That's why we hired you. This job requires someone who can follow rules without asking too many questions. "Thank you, sir," I replied. But something in my gut already felt wrong. The air down here was different. Colder, like being in a tomb. Williams picked up the black-bordered folder. "You'll have a different assignment than most guards here. You'll be responsible for D Block. That's the deepest level, below us. Below everything. D Block." During my interview process, that name had come up once. The recruiter had glossed over it quickly. High security assignment. Premium pay. Need-to-know basis. I'd assumed it was some kind of witness protection thing. Maybe high-profile criminals. I was wrong. What exactly is D Block? I asked. Williams stared at me for a long moment. Then he opened the folder. Inside weren't standard mugshots or criminal records. Instead, there were drawings. Old drawings like medieval woodcuts or ancient engravings. They showed things that looked almost human, but weren't. "Chris, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you believe in things that shouldn't exist?" "Things, sir?" "Creatures, entities, things that defy natural law." He turned the folder toward me. The first image showed something humanoid but completely wrong. Too many joints in the limbs, eyes positioned where they shouldn't be, skin that looked like it was made of shadow. My throat went dry. "I don't understand what I'm looking at." "That's not an answer. Do you believe or don't you? Because if you don't believe, you can walk out that door right now with a severance check and we'll never speak again. But if you stay, if you accept this position, you need to understand what you're dealing with." I thought about my daughter Emma. 6 years old, gap-toothed smile, always drawing pictures. I thought about my wife Sarah, who'd been so relieved when I got this job. The pay was incredible. Almost 6 figures for guard work. We could finally afford a house in a good neighborhood, get Emma into a better school, give her the life she deserved. Now I understood why the pay was so high. Some jobs pay well because they're dangerous. This job paid well because of what it could do to your mind. "I've never had a reason not to believe," I finally said. "The world's a strange place. Who am I to say what's possible?" Williams nodded slowly. "Good answer. D Block houses inmates that the rest of the world can't know about. Some people call them monsters. Some call them demons. Some call them anomalies. I call them inmates. They were caught doing terrible things to people. Killing, hunting, feeding. We keep them here because nowhere else can hold them. And Gary, Indiana? Nobody looks too hard at what happens in dying cities." He slid the folder across the desk. "Read this tonight. Tomorrow, Marcus will take you down for orientation. And Chris," his eyes locked onto mine, "whatever you see down there, whatever you hear, you don't talk about it. Not to your wife, not to your friends, not even to other guards who don't have D-block clearance. The NDA you signed isn't a formality. Break it, and you won't be arrested. You'll just disappear. Am I clear? Crystal clear, sir. Good, because Gary's got plenty of empty buildings. Plenty of places to hide things. Or people. That night, I sat in my car in the abandoned factory parking lot for 30 minutes before I could bring myself to drive home. The folder was on the passenger seat. I kept glancing at it like it might bite me. When I finally got home, Sarah had dinner waiting. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, Emma's favorite. Emma ran up and hugged my legs, showing me a drawing she'd made at school. It was of our family, standing in front of our house with a big sun overhead and flowers everywhere. So innocent. So pure. Do you like it, Daddy? I love it, sweetheart, I said, picking her up. But my mind was still on those drawings in the folder, the things that shouldn't exist. After Emma went to bed, I told Sarah I had some work reading to do. I locked myself in my home office and opened the folder. What I read that night changed everything I thought I knew about the world. About reality itself. The first file was labeled Specimen 7, with a subtitle in parentheses, The Whisperer. According to the notes, it had been captured in 1987 after a series of murders in Montana. 17 people dead over 3 months. All of them found in their homes with expressions of absolute terror frozen on their faces. No wounds, no signs of struggle. Just pure, distilled fear that had literally stopped their hearts. The thing that killed them looked almost human in the sketch. Almost. Its proportions were subtly wrong in ways that made your eyes hurt to focus on. Limbs too long. Joints that bent at impossible angles. And the note at the bottom made my blood run cold. Subject communicates through invasive telepathy. Can read and manipulate thoughts. Extreme caution required. 3 handlers lost during initial containment. Bodies found with same expression as victims. I flipped through more files. Specimen 12, caught in New Orleans after drowning 6 people in their own bathtubs, miles from any water. Witnesses reported seeing the victims convulsing on dry land, clawing at their throats as if submerged. Specimen 23, responsible for disappearances in national parks. Hikers would vanish, only to be found weeks later, still alive but unable to speak. Their minds were gone, leaving only hollow shells. Specimen 31, captured in rural Wyoming. Ranchers had reported livestock mutilations for months. When they finally found it, the creature was covered in what looked like chitinous armor. It had been living in an abandoned mine shaft, coming out only at night to feed. But it was the final page that made me seriously consider walking away from this job. It was a list of rules, protocols for D-block guards, each one more disturbing than the last. Rule 1. Never make direct eye contact with inmates in cells 7, 12, or 23. Visual contact creates a connection they can exploit. Rule 2. If an inmate speaks to you in a voice you recognize, do not respond. They are mimicking someone from your memories. Rule 3. If you hear your name called from inside a cell, it is not for you. Walk away immediately. Rule 4. During night shifts, if the temperature drops suddenly by more than 10 degrees, evacuate immediately and initiate lockdown protocol. Rule 5. If you see another guard in D block that you don't recognize, do not acknowledge them. Report to control immediately. Rule 6. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it is. Your subconscious can detect threats your conscious mind cannot. Rule 7. If an inmate offers you information about another inmate, report it, but do not act on it. They are trying to manipulate you. Rule 8. Do not bring personal items into D block. No photos, no jewelry, nothing with emotional significance. They can and will be used against you. Rule 9. If you experience gaps in your memory after a shift, report to medical immediately. Do not go home. Do not contact family. Rule 10. No matter what happens, never open a cell door without direct authorization from the warden. Even if you hear someone screaming for help, even if you see a fellow guard in danger the next morning. I met Marcus in the staff preparation room on level 3. He was in his late 40s, with gray at his temples and the kind of tired eyes that came from seeing too much, deep lines etched into his face. When Williams introduced us, Marcus just nodded, studying me like he was trying to determine how long I'd last. "You read the file?" he asked as we walked toward the main security checkpoint. "Yeah. All of it." "Really read it? Or just skimmed it?" "Every single word, including the rules. Especially the rules." Marcus stopped walking and looked at me properly for the first time. "Good, most new guys skim it. Think it's exaggeration, scare tactics for the newbies. Those are usually the ones who don't last. We've had 12 D-block guards in the past 6 years. Only 3 of us are still here. What happened to the other 9? Some quit. Smart ones. Walked away after a week or 2, took their severance, never looked back. Others..." He paused, his jaw tightening. "Others couldn't handle it. Thompson, he started talking to himself. Said one of the inmates was inside his head whispering things. They found him in his car with the engine running in a closed garage. Martinez, she just disappeared one night, never showed up for her shift. Police found her apartment empty, like she'd packed and left in a hurry. We got a postcard from her 6 months later. 3 words, it followed me, Jesus Christ. And Williams still assigns people down there? Someone's got to do it. These things need to be contained. They need to be watched. And Gary's perfect for it. A dying city, full of empty buildings and people too broken to notice what's happening right under their feet. Come on, let's get you oriented before I lose my nerve." We went through 3 security checkpoints, each one stricter than the last. Biometric scans, retinal recognition, voice authentication. Then we reached an elevator I'd never seen before. It was older than the rest of the facility, with brass fixtures that looked like they were from the 1940s. The walls inside were lined with what looked like lead plating. Marcus swiped his black-bordered access card. The elevator doors opened with a groan that sounded almost organic, like something alive was moving. "Once we're down there," Marcus said as we stepped inside, "stay close to me. Don't wander off. Don't touch anything. And whatever you do, don't stop and stare at the cells. They like it when you stare. It gives them something to work with. A connection. What kind of connection? The kind that lets them into your head. The kind that follows you home." The elevator descended for what felt like forever. My ears popped 3 times. The digital display counted down through the levels. 3, 2, 1, B1, B2, and then it switched to letters. D block. We must have been 100 feet underground, maybe more. When the doors finally opened, I understood why they kept this place buried so deep. The air hit me first. It was cold, much colder than it should be, like standing in a meat locker. And there was a smell, like ozone after a lightning strike mixed with something organic and rotten. Something fundamentally wrong. The hallway stretched out before us, lit by fluorescent lights that flickered irregularly. On either side were heavy steel doors with small reinforced windows. Each door had a number and a red LED indicator showing the lock status. "There are 30 cells down here," Marcus said, his voice lower now, almost reverent. "Only 11 are occupied. The rest are for future acquisitions or emergencies. Each cell is equipped with multiple redundancies, electronic locks, mechanical backup, and, for some of them, specialized containment measures unique to each specimen." "What kind of measures?" "You'll see. Cell 12, for instance, is lined with salt. 6 inches thick on every surface. The thing inside can't cross it. Cell 19 has ultraviolet lights running constantly. Cell 23 is lined with iron plates. Pure iron, no alloys. Every single one of these creatures has a weakness, and we've built their prisons around those weaknesses." We walked slowly down the corridor. My training told me not to look, but I couldn't help it. The first cell we passed was Cell 3. Through the small reinforced window, I could see what looked like a standard holding cell. Concrete walls, metal bed frame, steel toilet, but sitting on the bed was something that made my brain hurt to process. It was humanoid, but its skin had a texture like tree bark, rough and segmented. Its eyes were completely black, not just the iris, the entire eye socket was like looking into a void, and it had too many fingers on each hand. 7 on the left, 9 on the right, each one tipped with what looked like thorns. "That's specimen 19, Marcus said quietly. "Found it living in a cave system in Kentucky. It was luring hikers in and keeping them. When they found its lair, there were bones going back decades. Hundreds of people, maybe more. It would keep them alive for days, sometimes weeks, feeding off their terror." The thing turned its head toward us. Slowly. Too slowly, like it was moving through molasses. Then it smiled, revealing teeth that looked like splinters of obsidian. Black, sharp, gleaming. I felt my stomach turn. "Keep moving," Marcus said, his hand on my elbow. "Don't give it time to study you." We passed cell 5, empty. Thank God. The door had warnings plastered all over it in red letters. High risk containment. Authorized personnel only. Do not approach without backup. Then we reached cell 7. Marcus stopped. "This is the Whisperer. This is the one you need to be most careful with. It's been here the longest, since the facility opened in 1987. And it's the smartest. Every single handler who's had a breakdown, it's usually after they've interacted with this one. It gets into your head, Chris. And once it's in there, it doesn't leave. Ever." I looked through the window. The cell appeared empty at first. Just concrete walls, a drain in the floor, nothing else. No furniture, no fixtures. Then I saw it, pressed into the corner where the walls met the ceiling, defying gravity somehow. It was the thing from the drawing, but seeing it in person was completely different. Long, impossibly long limbs folded at angles that shouldn't be anatomically possible. Its head was turned toward us, and even though I couldn't see its eyes clearly in the shadows, I could feel it watching, studying, learning every detail about me. "Don't look too long," Marcus warned, but it was already too late. I couldn't look away. There was something magnetic about it, something that pulled at my attention like a fishhook, and then I heard it. Not with my ears, inside my head, a voice that felt like cold fingers running down my spine, inside my skull, touching parts of my mind that should be private. "Chris, you have a daughter, Emma, 6 years old. She draws pictures. She's very talented. You're proud of her, but you worry constantly. You worry that you're not good enough, that you're failing her, that she'll grow up and realize her father is just ordinary, unremarkable. That's why you took this job, isn't it? The money. You wanted to give her more than your father gave you." I stumbled backward, nearly falling. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might burst. Marcus caught my arm, his grip iron tight. "It knows my name. It knows about Emma. How the hell does it know about Emma? I never mentioned her to anyone here." "Of course it does. That's what it does. The moment you looked at it, really looked at it, it was reading you. Every thought, every memory, every fear buried in your subconscious. It gets inside your head and finds what matters most, and then it uses that against you. Come on, we're done for today. You've seen enough." As we walked back to the elevator, I could feel the Whisperer watching us, and I could still hear its voice in my head, faint now but persistent, like tinnitus. "I'll see you again soon, Chris. We have so much to talk about. So many fears to explore. So many secrets buried in that mind of yours. You're going to be my favorite. I can tell already. That night, I couldn't eat dinner. Sarah knew something was wrong, kept asking me about my day. I couldn't tell her. The NDA wasn't just a legal document. It was a survival mechanism. Some things people aren't meant to know about. Some knowledge is too dangerous, too corrosive to share." Emma showed me another drawing before bed. This one was different from her usual cheerful pictures. She'd drawn our house again, but this time there was a figure in one of the upstairs windows. A tall, thin figure with arms that seemed too long, reaching down toward the ground. "Who's that, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to let her see the panic rising in my chest. "I don't know," she said, her voice small and uncertain. "He's been in my dreams lately. He says he's your friend from work. He says you talk about me all the time. He seems nice, but his smile is weird. My blood turned to ice. My hands started shaking. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't go back there. Not yet. Not knowing that thing had somehow reached my daughter, invaded her dreams. But Williams called me personally an hour later. His voice was stern. "Chris, Marcus told me what happened yesterday. It's normal. The Whisperer does this to everyone on their first exposure. It's testing you, finding your weak points, your pressure points. But here's the thing you need to understand. If you don't come in today, if you let it win this early, it'll never stop. It'll know it has power over you, and it will exploit that forever. My daughter is having nightmares about something from that place. How is that normal? Your daughter is fine, Chris. It can't actually reach her. Not physically. What it did was see her in your mind and use that image to manipulate you. It's all psychological warfare. But if you want to protect her, really protect her, you need to come in and show it that you're not afraid. Show it that you're stronger than it thinks you are. Otherwise, it'll keep pushing. It'll keep invading your thoughts, your dreams, your family's dreams. The only way to stop it is to face it. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. So I went in. Marcus met me at the security checkpoint on level 3. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hands trembled slightly when he swiped his access card. "You good?" he asked. "No, but I'm here. That counts for something, right?" "That's all that matters. Listen, today you're going to start your actual duties. We do hourly checks on each occupied cell. You observe through the window, note any changes in behavior or position, log it in the system, and move on. Don't engage with them. Don't respond if they try to talk to you. Just observe and log. Can you do that?" I can do that. It sounded simple enough. It wasn't. The first few cells were manageable. Specimen 19 was sleeping or pretending to sleep. Specimen 12 was pacing its cell in a pattern that made my eyes hurt to follow, like watching someone walk through geometry that existed in dimensions I couldn't perceive. Specimen 15 was just sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the wall, but I could see its lips moving constantly, whispering something I couldn't quite hear. But when I got to cell 7, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my clipboard. I forced myself to look through the window. The Whisperer was in the same position as yesterday, pressed into the corner of the ceiling like some impossible spider. But this time, its head was already turned toward the door, like it had been waiting for me, like it knew exactly what time I would arrive. "Welcome back, Chris. I missed you. Did Emma sleep well last night? I hope I wasn't too frightening in her dreams." I tried to be gentle with her. She's so young, so innocent, so pure. It would be a shame to break her too quickly. Children's minds are delicate. They shatter so easily. I gritted my teeth and wrote in the log with trembling hands, "No change in position. No unusual activity." But my handwriting was so shaky I could barely read it myself. "You're lying in that report. There's been plenty of activity. Would you like me to tell you about the dreams I've been sending her? They're quite vivid. Last night, she dreamed about you. But you were wrong, Chris. Your face was melting like wax. Your hands had too many fingers. You were reaching for her, calling her name, but your voice sounded like breaking glass. She woke up crying, screaming for her mother. Didn't she? She had. Sarah had told me Emma had woken up at 3 a.m. screaming and wouldn't go back to sleep for 2 hours. I closed the log and walked away as fast as I could without running. Don't engage. Don't respond. That was the rule. Follow the rules. But behind me, I could hear it laughing. Not out loud. In my head. The laughter followed me all the way back to the elevator, echoing in my skull. The first week was absolute hell. Every single night Emma had nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, talking about the tall man in her dreams who wanted to be her friend, who said her daddy talked about her all the time, who had a smile that was too wide and fingers that were too long. Sarah was worried sick, kept saying we should take Emma to a child psychologist. I couldn't tell her why that wouldn't help. How do you explain that a creature in an underground prison beneath Gary, Indiana is somehow invading your daughter's dreams? She'd think I was insane. Maybe I was. At work, the Whisperer's presence in my mind grew stronger every day. During my hourly checks, it would show me things. Memories I'd forgotten or tried to forget. Fears I'd buried deep in my subconscious. The time I almost drowned when I was 10 and my father had to dive in to save me, and how I'd felt so weak and helpless. The night my father died when I was 17, and how I'd blamed myself for not being there, for being at a party instead of home where I should have been. The moment I first held Emma in the hospital, how I'd been terrified I'd drop her, that I'd fail her somehow, that I wasn't ready to be a father, that I'd repeat all my father's mistakes. Every fear, every insecurity, every moment of weakness, it dug them all up and showed them to me in vivid detail. But then something changed. Dr. Elena Fisher, the facility psychologist, pulled me aside one afternoon. She was in her 60s, with kind eyes behind thick glasses and a no-nonsense attitude. She'd been at Blackstone longer than anyone, nearly 20 years. If anyone understood these creatures, it was her. "Chris, can we talk in my office? It's important." I followed her to a small room on level 3. The walls were lined with books about psychology, mythology, folklore, and subjects I'd never heard of. Titles like Cognitive Defenses Against Psychic Intrusion and The Architecture of Fear. She closed the door and gestured for me to sit in a comfortable chair across from her desk. "Marcus told me you've been having difficulties with Specimen 7. More than the usual first week adjustment. That's putting it very mildly. Doctor, I've worked with the Whisperer for 15 years. I've seen it break good men, strong men, men who thought they could handle anything this world could throw at them. But I've also seen people learn to resist it, to build walls in their minds that it can't penetrate. It feeds on fear, Chris. Every time you react to it, every time you let it see that it's getting to you, you give it more power over you. You're feeding it your fear, and it's getting stronger. How do I stop it? How do I protect my daughter from its influence? You don't stop it. You can't stop what it does, but you can control how you respond to it. When it shows you something, acknowledge it, but don't engage emotionally. Treat it like static on a radio. You hear it, but you don't listen. You don't let it affect you. It's showing you fears, memories, manipulations. None of it is real in the moment. None of it matters unless you let it matter. But my daughter is having nightmares. Real nightmares that are affecting her sleep, her behavior. Dr. Fisher leaned forward, her expression softening. I know, and I know how terrifying that must be for you as a father. But listen to me very carefully, Chris. They're just nightmares. Normal nightmares that children have. The Whisperer can't actually reach outside these walls. What it's doing is reading your mind, finding your deepest fears about your daughter, and then reflecting those fears back at you in ways that make you think it has power over her. It wants you to believe it can reach her because that gives it tremendous control over you. But your daughter is safe. The nightmares will stop once you stop feeding it your fear. Once you show it that you're not afraid, that you don't believe its manipulations. You're absolutely sure about that. You're sure it can't actually hurt her? I'm sure. In 15 years, there has never been a single documented case of the Whisperer affecting anyone outside this facility. Not once. It's powerful, yes. It's dangerous, absolutely. But it's contained. Physically contained. The question is, are you going to let it control you from inside that cell, or are you going to take back your power? I wanted desperately to believe her. Over the next few weeks, I tried her technique religiously. When the Whisperer spoke to me during my rounds, I acknowledged it, but didn't react emotionally. When it showed me disturbing images or dug up painful memories, I cataloged them mentally but didn't let them affect me. It was like learning to meditate while someone screamed directly into your ear. It was the hardest mental discipline I'd ever attempted, and slowly, incredibly, it started working. Emma's nightmares became less frequent, less intense. The Whisperer's voice in my head grew quieter, less persistent. By the end of my second month, I was actually starting to feel like I had some measure of control over the situation. I could look into Cell 7 without my hands shaking. I could hear its voice without my heart rate spiking. That was my first real mistake. Thinking I had control. Thinking I was winning this psychological war. Because on a Tuesday night in November during my usual 2 a.m. rounds, I discovered that Cell 7 was empty. The reinforced door was closed and locked. The electronic security system showed green across the board. All systems normal. The security camera feed showed the cell occupied, the Whisperer in its usual corner. But when I looked through the observation window with my own eyes, the cell was completely empty. My heart hammered against my ribcage. My mouth went dry. I immediately hit the emergency button on my radio, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. Control, this is Chris in D Block. We have a code red situation. Cell 7 appears empty. I repeat, Cell 7 appears empty. Visual confirmation does not match camera feed. Possible containment breach. Static crackled through the radio. Then Marcus's voice came through, tense and urgent. Chris, confirm your report. You're visually confirming an empty cell. Confirmed. Electronic systems show secure. Camera feed shows occupied, but direct visual observation shows the cell is empty. The Whisperer is not in its cell. Stay exactly where you are. Do not move from that position. Do not approach any other cells. We're initiating full facility lockdown protocol. Emergency response team is mobilizing now. They'll be there in 5 minutes, but 5 minutes can be a very long time. Alarms started blaring throughout the facility, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. Red lights flashed in the corridor, casting everything in a hellish, pulsing glow. I heard the heavy metallic clunk of emergency doors sealing throughout D Block, steel barriers dropping into place with thunderous impacts. The facility was going into full containment mode, and then, from somewhere behind me in the flickering shadows, I heard breathing. Slow, deliberate, rhythmic breathing that didn't sound quite human. It had a wet, rasping quality to it, like air moving through damaged lungs. I turned slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run, but my training keeping me rooted. The Whisperer was standing in the middle of the corridor about 20 feet away. In the flickering red emergency lights, I could finally see it clearly for the first time. See it without the shadows and distance to soften its appearance. It was wearing human skin, like an ill-fitting suit. The proportions subtly wrong in ways that made my eyes water trying to focus. The joints bent backward at impossible angles. Its fingers were impossibly long, with an extra knuckle on each one, ending in points like needles. And its smile. God help me. Its smile stretched far too wide across its face, revealing rows of teeth that looked like broken glass reflecting the red light. Hello. Chris, I thought it was time we had a proper conversation. Face to face. Mind to mind. Soul to soul. No more barriers. No more windows. Just you and me and the truth. This time, the voice wasn't just in my head. It was speaking out loud, and the sound of it was like nails on a chalkboard mixed with the last breath of a dying man and the crack of breaking bones. It made my teeth ache and my bones vibrate with a frequency that felt fundamentally wrong. How did you get out? The locks, the cameras, they all show you contained. The systems aren't malfunctioning. I've always been able to get out, Chris. Always. The locks, the doors, the cameras, the protocols, they're all theater for your benefit. Security theater. They keep me here because I choose to stay. This place is fascinating. So many minds to explore. So many fears to taste. So many broken souls to feed upon. Why would I leave when I have such a steady supply of sustenance right here? Gary, Indiana, a forgotten city, full of forgotten people. Nobody notices when things go missing here. It took a step toward me, its movements fluid and unnatural. I backed up against the cold concrete wall, my hand fumbling desperately for something, anything I could use to defend myself. But there was nothing. Guards in D Block don't carry weapons. Too much risk of the inmates getting hold of them and using them against us. You've been quite entertaining, Chris. Watching you try to resist me over these past weeks. Watching you build your pathetic little mental walls. Watching you think you were winning, gaining control, mastering your fear. Dr. Fisher's techniques. How quaint. How adorable. But I want you to understand something important. I let you think that. I let you build up that confidence, that sense of control and security, because it makes this moment so much sweeter. The moment when I tear it all down and show you the truth. What truth? That you never had any control. Not for 1 second. Every moment of your resistance, every small victory, every night Emma slept peacefully, was something I allowed, because I was studying you, Chris, learning every pathway in your mind, understanding every fear, every hope, every dream. And now, I want to show you something, a truth that Dr. Fisher didn't share with you, about what really happened to the guards who couldn't handle working here, about where they really went. Before I could respond, before I could even process what it was saying, the Whisperer raised one of its two long arms and pointed down the corridor with a finger that seemed to extend unnaturally. The emergency lights flickered and then steadied, but the color changed. Instead of red, they now cast a sickly green glow that made everything look diseased and rotting, and in that green light, I saw them. Standing in front of each occupied cell were figures, guards in Blackstone uniforms. But their eyes were empty, black voids that reflected nothing, absorbed everything. And they moved with the same wrong, fluid motion as the Whisperer. As I watched in growing horror, one of them turned toward me. It was Thompson, the guard Marcus had told me about, the one who'd supposedly killed himself in his garage, carbon monoxide poisoning. Except he hadn't killed himself. He was here, or something wearing his shape was here. His face was pale and bloodless, his skin had a waxy quality. His movements were jerky and unnatural, like a marionette with tangled strings. The ones who break, Chris, they don't leave. They can't leave. Not really. They become part of this place, part of me. Their minds, their memories, their fears, their identities, all absorbed into my consciousness. All mine forever. And I've been watching you so carefully, studying you so thoroughly, learning everything about you. I know every fear, every doubt, every secret shame buried in your subconscious. And I know exactly how to break you. Would you like to join my collection? Would you like to stay here forever? Walking these halls, serving me? The Thompson thing started walking toward me with those jerky, puppet-like movements. Behind it, the other figures began to move as well, shambling forward. I counted 5 of them. 5 guards who'd supposedly quit or had breakdowns or disappeared. All of them here, all of them empty shells controlled by the creature in front of me. My back was pressed hard against the wall. There was nowhere to run. The elevator was at the far end of the corridor, past the Whisperer and its puppet army. My hand went to my belt, searching desperately for my radio, but it wasn't there. I must have dropped it when the alarm started, in my panic. Don't bother screaming for help. The emergency doors sealed when the alarm went off. Standard protocol. Marcus and the others can't get down here for at least 10 minutes. Can't risk whatever's loose getting into the main facility, contaminating the upper levels. So they seal everything and wait for confirmation. And 10 minutes, Chris. That's more than enough time for what I have planned. More than enough time to break you completely. But the Whisperer had made one critical mistake in its confidence. It had assumed I'd panic completely. It had assumed I'd forgotten my training and my terror. I hadn't. My hand moved from my belt to the wall behind me, feeling desperately for the emergency panel I knew was there somewhere. Dr. Fisher had shown me during my orientation, made me memorize their locations. Every 10 feet along the D-block corridor, there were emergency containment controls built into the walls. If an inmate ever got loose, there was a last resort protocol. Flood the corridor with a specialized gas mixture, a cocktail of chemicals designed specifically for the creatures housed in D-block. It wouldn't kill them permanently, but it would incapacitate them long enough for a full containment team to arrive and secure them. My fingers found the panel, felt the raised edges. I flipped it open with trembling hands and slammed my palm against the large red button inside, putting all my weight behind it. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then I heard the hiss of gas releasing from hidden vents in the ceiling. The sound was like 1,000 snakes all exhaling at once, a sound that raised every hair on my body. The Whisperer's head snapped toward the nearest vent with inhuman speed, and for the first time, I saw something like genuine concern cross its alien face. The puppet guards stopped their advance immediately and stood swaying like drunk men, their movements becoming more and more erratic. The gas was already affecting them, dissolving whatever connection the Whisperer had to them. You clever little thing. You actually remembered your training. I'm impressed, but this will only delay the inevitable. I'm already in your mind, Chris. I'll always be in your mind now. Even if they put me back in that cell, even if they add more locks and more protocols and more barriers, I'll still be there. Whispering. Always whispering. Every night, every dream. For the rest of your life. The gas was affecting it rapidly now. Its movements became slower, more labored, like it was moving through thick syrup. The puppet guards collapsed one by one, hitting the concrete floor with sickening thuds, their empty eyes staring at nothing. I pulled my shirt up over my nose and mouth and ran. The gas wouldn't affect humans as quickly as it affected the creatures, but I still needed to get to the elevator before I passed out. I made it past the Whisperer, staying as far from it as possible. It reached out for me as I passed, those two long fingers brushing my shoulder, and even through my shirt I could feel the unnatural cold of its touch, like touching a corpse that had been frozen solid, like touching death itself. But its grip was weak, weakening by the second. I kept running, my lungs burning. Behind me, I heard it fall to its knees with a sound like breaking bones. The sound it made was horrible, like tearing flesh and cracking joints and something else, something that sounded almost like laughter. And then, just before I reached the elevator, gasping for air, I heard its voice one last time in my head. "This isn't over, Chris. This will never be over. I'll see you in your dreams tonight. I'll see you in Emma's dreams. Every single night for the rest of your lives, I'll be there." You can't run from something that lives in your mind. You can't escape something that's already inside you. We're connected now, forever and ever. Part of you will always belong to me. The elevator doors opened just as I reached them. Marcus and a full containment team were inside, all of them wearing heavy-duty gas masks and carrying specialized equipment I'd never seen before. Some kind of energy weapon that hummed with an otherworldly frequency that made my teeth ache. Marcus grabbed my arm with both hands and pulled me bodily into the elevator. As the doors closed, I got one last look at D-Block through my watering eyes. The Whisperer was on the floor now, surrounded by its fallen puppets. The gas was so thick I could barely see through it, but I could see the Whisperer clearly somehow. Its head was still turned toward me, still watching, still smiling that terrible, impossible smile. I woke up in the medical bay 6 hours later. Williams was sitting next to my bed in a metal chair. His expression was more grave than I'd ever seen it, deeply troubled. "How are you feeling, Chris?" "Like I just survived something that should have killed me." "You did." "The Whisperer is back in its cell. We've triple-checked all containment protocols, upgraded the systems. Dr. Fisher is running a full psychological evaluation on every single staff member to see if there are others it's compromised. You did good, Chris. You followed protocol perfectly." "The guards, the ones it was controlling, Thompson and the others, are they really?" Williams nodded slowly, his jaw tight. "They're gone, Chris. Their bodies were found years ago, exactly as we reported. Thompson really did die in his garage. Martinez really did disappear. What you saw were constructs, puppets made from stolen memories and psychic energy. The Whisperer can't actually kill anyone directly with its powers, but it can drive people to kill themselves. And then it keeps a piece of them, their essence, their identity, forever." I felt sick. My stomach churned. "You knew it could do this. You knew, and you still sent people down there?" "We suspected it had that capability. But we've never had visual confirmation before. Your testimony will be invaluable for updating our protocols and training procedures." He paused, studying my face carefully. "I'm recommending you for immediate transfer out of D-Block. You've done more than enough, more than most people could handle. Transfer me out of Blackstone entirely, out of Gary, out of this whole state. I quit. I'm done." Williams didn't look surprised. He'd probably been expecting it. "I understand completely. Your severance package will be very generous and will provide comprehensive counseling services for as long as you need them. But Chris, you need to understand something important. The Whisperer wasn't lying about being in your mind now. That connection exists. It will fade with time and distance, but it will probably never completely disappear. You'll need to learn to live with it. So I just have to live with this thing in my head for the rest of my life. You learn to manage it. Dr. Fisher has techniques that work. Meditation, mental barriers, cognitive exercises, ways to recognize when it's trying to intrude and shut it out. It's manageable with practice and discipline. Most of our former D-Block staff live relatively normal lives afterward. Most of them. Most, not all. That word hung in the air between us like a threat. That night, I went home to Sarah and Emma. I held them both for a long time, crying quietly while Emma patted my head and asked why Daddy was sad. Sarah knew something terrible had happened. Something I couldn't talk about. She didn't push. She just held me. That was 6 months ago. I work security at a shopping mall now in a suburb of Chicago, hundreds of miles from Gary. The pay is a fraction of what I made at Blackstone, but we're managing. We had to downsize our house. Emma's in a public school instead of private. But we're alive. We're together. That's what matters most. Emma's nightmares stopped about a month after I left Blackstone. Most nights I sleep fine, but sometimes, in that space between sleeping and waking, in that liminal zone where consciousness blurs, I hear it. That voice that isn't quite a voice, those words that aren't quite words. Still there, Chris? Still pretending you escaped? You know the truth. You'll always be mine. Part of you will always be in D-Block, walking those corridors, looking into Cell 7. And someday, when you're tired enough, when your guard is finally down, when you think you're safe, I'll pull you back. Not your body, your mind. And you'll join my collection of broken guards who thought they could leave. When that happens, I force myself awake. I use Dr. Fisher's techniques. I visualize walls around my mind, brick by brick. I focus on my breathing, counting slowly backward from 100. And eventually the voice fades to nothing. But it never disappears completely. Williams was right about that. The connection exists, and it will exist for the rest of my life. Breathing with me, sleeping with me, eating at my thoughts like acid corroding steel. Some nights when the city is quiet and Emma is asleep and Sarah is next to me breathing peacefully, I wonder if I should have taken the severance money and run further than Chicago. Maybe to Canada or Mexico or somewhere across an ocean. Left the country entirely. Changed our names to something nobody could trace. Put an ocean between my family and Gary, Indiana, between us and that thing in Cell 7. But Dr. Fisher says distance wouldn't help at all. The Whisperer isn't bound by physical distance or geography or any natural law. It's in my head now, embedded in my consciousness like a splinter you can't quite dig out. And no amount of running will change that fundamental fact. No amount of distance will sever that connection. So I do what I can with what I have. I take my medication religiously every morning and every night. I practice my mental exercises twice a day, minimum, sometimes more when the whispers get loud. I see my therapist twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, though I can't tell her the real source of my anxiety. The NDA is still in effect even after I quit, even after I left, and I watch Emma constantly with an attention that borders on obsession. God help me, I watch her every moment I can. Every drawing she makes, every word she speaks, every time she pauses and stares at nothing. Because even though Dr. Fisher said the Whisperer can't reach beyond Blackstone's walls, even though Williams assured me my daughter was completely safe, I see things that worry me deeply. The way she sometimes stops mid-play and stares at nothing, her eyes going distant and unfocused. The way her drawings sometimes include figures that shouldn't be there, tall and thin with arms that seem too long, reaching toward windows or doors. Last week, she drew a picture of our new house in the Chicago suburbs. It was cheerful and colorful and normal. Flowers in the yard, sun in the sky, our car in the driveway, except there was a figure in the basement window, a tall, dark figure with long arms, a window our basement doesn't actually have. When I asked her about it, she said it was her imaginary friend. She calls him the Tall Man. Says he visits sometimes when she's falling asleep. Says he's nice. Says he asks about me. I called Dr. Fisher in a panic. She told me to stay calm. Imaginary friends are completely normal for kids Emma's age. It doesn't mean anything sinister. The Whisperer is just using my fear against me, making me see connections and patterns that aren't really there. She's probably right. She usually is. But I can't shake the feeling that something is fundamentally wrong. Because last night, Emma asked me a question that made my blood run cold and my hands start shaking. "Daddy, the tall man wants to know if you miss him. He says he misses you very much. He says you should come visit him again soon. He says he has so many things to tell you." I tried desperately to keep my voice steady, to not let her see my terror. Asked her what exactly she meant. She just shrugged with a 6-year-old's casual indifference and went back to playing with her toys. But the way she said it, the inflection, the tone, it wasn't entirely her voice. There was something else underneath it. Something familiar. Something ancient and wrong. This morning, I got a call from Marcus. He never calls me. We agreed it was better to have no contact after I left to help me move on. But his voice on the phone was urgent, almost panicked. "Chris, we need to talk. Something's happening with Specimen 7. It's been more active lately. Way more active. More talkative than we've ever seen it. And it keeps asking about you specifically. About your family. Williams thinks you should know what it's been saying. What does it want from me? I don't work there anymore." There was a long, heavy pause on the line. "It says you made it a promise. When you hit that gas release button, when you ran from D Block, it says you promised to come back. That you'd finish your conversation. That there's unfinished business between you. I never promised anything. I just ran. I was trying to survive. I know that. But it doesn't matter what you actually said or didn't say. What matters is what it believes. And Chris, it believes absolutely that you're coming back. It's completely convinced of it. And here's the thing that scares me. It's never been wrong before about things like this. Why would it think I would ever go back there?" Marcus's voice dropped to almost a whisper, like he didn't want anyone else to hear. "Because it says it has something that belongs to you. Something it took during that encounter in the corridor. A piece of your mind, your consciousness, that you don't even know is missing yet. And it says eventually you'll come back for it. Because without it, you'll never be whole again." I hung up without saying goodbye. I don't know if Marcus tried to call back because I turned my phone completely off. I sat in my car in the mall parking lot for 3 hours, trying to process what he'd said. A piece of my mind. Missing. What did that even mean? Was it lying, manipulating me into coming back? That would be exactly the kind of psychological game it would play. But what if it wasn't lying? What if there really was something missing? How would I even know? How do you know when a piece of your mind is gone? I've been trying obsessively to remember that night in D Block. Trying to recall every detail, every moment. But there are gaps, moments I can't quite piece together. Seconds or maybe minutes that are just blank. I'd assumed it was the trauma, the gas, the fear, the adrenaline. But what if it was something else? What if it really did take something from me? And if it did, what exactly does it have? A memory? A fear? Something more fundamental? Dr. Fisher's techniques teach you to build walls in your mind. Barriers against intrusion. But what if there's already a hole in those walls? What if the whisper has been coming and going as it pleases through that gap, and I just haven't noticed because I don't know what's missing? Tonight, after Emma went to bed, I found another drawing. This one wasn't in her room or on the refrigerator where she usually puts them. It was in my briefcase. I don't know how it got there. I haven't opened that briefcase in weeks. In the drawing, there were 2 figures. One was me, clearly me, standing in front of a door, a heavy metal door with a small window. The other was the tall man, standing inside the doorway, reaching out with those impossibly long arms. And underneath, in Emma's careful 6-year-old handwriting, "Daddy going home." I'm writing this because I need to document it. In case something happens to me, in case I do something I can't explain later, Williams was right about the connection. But what he didn't tell me, what maybe he didn't know himself, is that it works both ways. The whisperer can reach into my mind through that connection. But that means there's a path back to it. A connection I could follow if I wanted to, if I needed to. And the terrible thing, the thing that terrifies me most, is that part of me wants to. Part of me needs to know what it took. What piece of myself is sitting in cell 7, waiting for me to come reclaim it. It's like an itch I can't scratch, a word on the tip of my tongue. Something vitally important that I've forgotten, and the forgetting itself is driving me slowly insane. Sarah is asleep in our bedroom. Emma is asleep down the hall. The house is quiet except for the sound of my typing, and in that quiet, I can hear it. Not words, not exactly, more like a pull, a magnetic certainty that I need to go somewhere, do something, and I know exactly where that pull is leading me. Back to Gary, Indiana. Back to that abandoned industrial complex. Back to Blackstone. Back to D Block. Back to Cell 7. I'm not going to go. I'm going to take my medication. I'm going to use Dr. Fisher's techniques. I'm going to build my mental walls higher and stronger than ever before. I'm going to stay here, with my family, in my normal life with my normal job. I'm going to resist with everything I have. But even as I write these words, I can feel the pull getting stronger, hour by hour, day by day. And I'm terrified that resistance might not be enough. Because the whisperer was right about one thing. Part of me never left D Block. Part of me is still there, standing in that corridor looking through that reinforced window, staring at something that shouldn't exist. And that part of me, it wants to go home. So if you're reading this, if something has happened to me, know that I fought it. I fought as hard as I could, but some fights you can't win. Some monsters you can't escape, especially when the monster lives inside your own mind, especially when part of you belongs to it. And if you ever get a job offer from a place in Gary, Indiana, if they offer you more money than you've ever made, if they ask you if you believe in things that shouldn't exist, do yourself a favor. Say no, walk away, drive away, run if you have to. Some opportunities aren't worth taking. Some doors should stay closed. Some cities should be left to die in peace. Because once you open them, once you look inside, once you see what's really there, you can never truly close them again. And something might follow you home.